Senator Wyden and Hassan for joining me. Well, we've all been hearing about how devastating the cuts to Medicaid and health care have been. Well, it's getting even worse. The more you look at the bill, at the House bill, the worse it gets. CBO is about to announce that it could go from 13.7 million people who would lose their coverage up to as many as 16 million. And new calculations will show that even Medicare is under the knife. So this is health care across the board. It is, of course, Medicaid, as important as that is. It is ACA. It is private insurance, which is going to skyrocket. It's everything that is terrible. So the news got even worse when you thought it couldn't get much worse. The bottom line is very simple. People with this bill, tens of millions who would otherwise qualify for health care benefits, would be mummified in new red tape, shortened enrollment periods, higher premiums, and weaker coverage. People will fall through the cracks and get phased out of coverage in the coming years. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. That's the intention of the Republican bill. And we all know one thing. Donald Trump is just lying about the bill. Lying about the bill. Well, here's the "We Are All Going to Die" Act. It says nearly 14 million, it's 16 million, getting closer to 16 million according to CBO's numbers, we've been told. 11 million people cut off from affordable food, tax cuts for billionaires. We're all going to die, Bill. And that shows the callousness of this Republican majority in the House and the Republican majority in the Senate. Repeal and replace, it's that by another name. That by another name. And just don't take my word for it. Look at Senate Republicans. We heard what Joni Ernst said, we're all going to die. How about John Kennedy? Not the former John Kennedy president, but our present Senator John Kennedy. He said, I'm not worried about people losing their health care. We remember the great Commerce Secretary Lutnick. Well, if my mom missed a payment on Social Security, it wouldn't matter. Of course, that billionaire, they have a billionaire son-in-law. But when Joni Ernst said people will die, she summed up the callousness of the whole Republican majority in terms of people's health. And health is our greatest gift. Despite the lies that Republicans have been telling Americans and maybe themselves, there's a cold, harsh reality that this bill is just tax breaks for the ultra-wealthy, paid for by gutting health care for up to 16 million Americans. And by the way, small business owners are going to see their premiums skyrocket. You know how many people, I believe at the end of the day, because so many hospitals will close or lay off people, that I believe it could be, certainly hundreds of thousands and maybe even over 1 million people losing their jobs. This is across the board disaster for the American people. Now, Donald Trump is trying to lie about it. But let me tell our Republican Senate colleagues, what will be enacted is not Donald Trump's soothing words, but the actual reality of harsh cuts where people lose health care, where people's premiums go up, where hospitals close, nursing homes close, and people are laid off. So anyone who thinks they're voting for the nice words of Donald Trump will face a harsh reality when this is implemented. And they moved up the implementation date as well to 2026. You know what that means? More hospitals close, more people are laid off. Healthcare providers don't get any time to try and adjust to the harsh reality that Republican House members and Republican senators want to impose on them. Over 850,000 people, it's estimated, will lose their jobs, and I think that estimate is low. I think it could go well over 1 million jobs lost. Over 10 million people who signed up for their insurance during the last month are healthy young people. Their costs are going to go up much higher. It affects the babies, it affects the kids, it affects the young people starting out with families, it affects the elderly. Across the board, it is just terrible. Now, Trump and the Republicans claim they want to fight fraud. Bull. Bull. They just pardoned a horrible nursing home owner. I think he got 10 years. I don't remember, but he got a big, long sentence, who committed fraud by taking money from the doctors and the nurses and the aides in his nursing home. They say they want to cut fraud. Then why'd they get rid of the IGs who are in charge of fraud? That's bull. They can't say it because they know how unpopular it is, but they just want to strangle health care and all it does for people, okay? Let me just say this. For many Americans, health care coverage is the difference between life and death. But, according to Ernst, fear not, we're going to die anyway. Tell that. The American people have heard it. Let me be clear, Democrats are ready. We are ready to fight. We are doubling down. We're ready to show Americans what's really at stake here, because this fight won't be won in just the Capitol. As Abe Lincoln said, public sentiment is everything. And when public sentiment hears about this "we're all gonna die" act, they're gonna hate it. And they're gonna tell their senators they hate it. And if the senators think they can get away with a yes vote and explain it, they're sadly mistaken. The cuts are too deep, the cuts are too real, the cuts are too devastating for people. Okay? And finally, why are they doing all this? Why are they being so mean? Why are they being so cruel? And why are they being so politically tin-eared at best, suicidal at worst, all to give tax breaks to billionaires? They are in total obeisance, Donald Trump is, and his colleagues are, to the small group of very wealthy, greedy people who say, I don't care what you do to everyone else, cut my taxes. And, by the way, get rid of any regulations. Senator White.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leader. And let me pick up on where the leader stopped. The legislation has rapidly become an anti-senior bill. And let me walk you through why that's the case. 1 million low-income seniors are going to see their Medicare premiums go up by nearly $200 a month. The bill makes nursing homes less safe for frail seniors because it rolls back safety standards. For example, Mehmet Oz somehow thinks that AI is going to take care of everything that seniors need in rest homes. We pointed out to him that's not going to help an 85-year-old who's up in the middle of the night and has to make the way to the bathroom. The bill's going to hurt hundreds of thousands of seniors by reducing services for those who count on Medicaid to lose care at home. And then the American people have heard some things about Medicaid in this bill and being so harmful. They're going to also learn that this bill would trigger $500 billion in Medicare cuts. This is going to hurt rural hospitals like a wrecking ball. Now, if you're an older person in America, this is also going to come on top of the Trump administration backing away from efforts to lower prescription drug costs. And we feel that this is a hugely big mistake. We work very hard to get the power to negotiate more affordable medicine for seniors. And all these cuts in senior programs that I've mentioned, they come on top of the Trump message to seniors: we're not really much interested in holding down your costs of medicine. Now, as the leader touched on, the latest numbers from CBO released 2 hours ago make it clear that there are going to be more than $1 trillion in cuts to Americans' health care. And we do expect to hear later today that even more Americans are going to be losing their health insurance than the initial estimates from the nonpartisan budget office have disclosed. but I do think that the American people want to know what's actually going on, and particularly for the seniors, who I've known since my days when I was director of the Gray Panthers. They have a right to know what incredibly harmful provisions are in the text of this legislation as of now. There's been some discussion about Medicaid, but you all, and I'm a journalist kid, can now go out and tell the elderly of this country how this bill is going to affect them, because they have a right to know and they aren't going to like it. This morally bankrupt bill boils down to a simple equation, as the leader touched on. Healthcare cuts for Americans walking on an economic tightrope is what this bill is all about, and it's going to be paid for by extra tax breaks for the ultra wealthy. Senator Hassan and I are members of the Finance Committee. You can be sure we'll be fighting this every step of the way. And as the leader noted, we are going to use every single tool at our disposal to fight this. I don't think the Republicans even want to talk about the specifics. The three of us, the leader and I, have our roots in the Finance Committee. We remember the days when Republicans wanted to go into the Finance Committee, have markup. They don't want to go into the Finance Committee and have markups because they don't want to talk about all the health care cuts they're hitting people with. So Senator Schumer, our leader, and Senator Hassan, very pleased to be with both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, leader.
Well, good afternoon.
Great Senator Hassan, one of our leaders on health care.
Bravo.
Well, thank you, Leader Schumer. Thank you, Chairman Wyden, Ranking Member Wyden, for your remarks and for your leadership. Thank you all for being here this afternoon. Look, President Trump and congressional Republicans continue to push forward a bill that gives more tax breaks to billionaires and corporate special interests, paid for by trillions being added to the national debt, paid for by taking health care coverage away from 36,000 Granite Staters and millions of Americans, and triggering nearly $500 billion in cuts to Medicare. Just last week, I met with Granite Staters, including in New Hampshire's rural North Country, and I heard about what will truly be a devastating impact that these health care cuts will have on both the people who need health care and on the ability of providers who want to serve patients to keep their doors open. Kadisha, a young mother in Nashua, New Hampshire, the southern part of the state, talked to me about the services that her son with autism gets because he has Medicaid coverage. Occupational therapy, physical therapy, behavioral therapy. He's making great progress. All of that is now at risk because of this bill. Now, Medicaid can be the difference between life or death for people and families, the difference between getting care for diabetes, for addiction, or cancer, or having these diseases go untreated. And seniors across our state have paid into Medicare their entire working lives based on the promise that the Medicare system will provide health care for them when they retire. This bill, one of the largest health care cuts in the history of the United States. Let me repeat that. This is one of the largest health care cuts in the history of the United States. Will result in more untreated diseases, packed emergency rooms, and even higher prescription drug prices. Just last week, someone I know was at one of our local hospitals' emergency room. The wait for treatment for a routine infection in that emergency room was 7 hours. That's a real problem, and it will only get much worse if this bill passes. And as people lose their coverage and don't get care, rural providers who count on these patients will have to severely cut back their services or close their doors altogether. Now, let me tell you what's happening for pregnant women in my state. For a pregnant woman in labor, as you all know, every minute feels like an hour. In New Hampshire, the median driving time to a labor and delivery unit has already doubled over the last decade to 40 minutes. If more hospitals have to close their labor and delivery units because of these Medicaid cuts, that time will grow even longer. And let's also be clear, especially in the northern part of my state, if it's winter time, that 40-minute drive may be a life-threatening drive in and of itself, and it will take much longer. We've seen an uptick in New Hampshire in births that occur in unplanned locations. just in January, a couple who ended up she had a home birth because she couldn't get to the hospital in time. For older and disabled Granite Staters, I heard in the North Country last week about a woman in her 80s who lives alone with her adult disabled son, who needs a community health worker to navigate the paperwork to apply for Medicaid and get the redetermination every year for her adult disabled son. She can't get through the paperwork without the help of a community health worker, and community health worker positions are being cut by this administration. So these new rules will have real impacts on people like my constituent who I just described and her disabled son. The bottom line here is clear. If congressional Republicans and Donald Trump get their way and pass their bill to give billionaires and corporate special interests more tax breaks at the expense of the middle class, more people will get sick, health providers will be impacted, our economy will be weakened, and families will be hurt. And last thing, I want to remind people that my colleagues and I, on both sides of the aisle, have in fact put forward a number of bipartisan proposals to lower healthcare costs. There's real work to be done in this area. But if my Republican colleagues are willing to abandon their dangerous partisan bill, we could actually do this work together and actually lower costs, healthcare costs, for our constituents. But right now, it appears that they are determined to pass this devastating bill. We're going to continue to speak out about the harms that it will cause, about the trillions it will add to our deficit, about the healthcare providers who will need to close their doors, about the real dangers this provides to the health, the security, and the economy of our states and our country. Thank you.
Well done, Maggie Hassan.
Maggie, great.
Just again, so you heard, everything's getting worse. The more you look at the bill, the worse it gets. It's now $1 trillion in cuts. It's over 800,000 job loss, many of them in nursing homes and rural hospitals. Just remember, they depend on Medicaid disproportionately. I've been in nursing homes in downstate, upstate, rural. They're all worried they're going to close. 70-80% of their revenue is Medicaid. Same with rural hospitals. And then you add the Medicare problems to it and the healthcare provider. Some of the bigger hospitals are going to be devastated and have to lay off people and not be able to treat people as well. But for the rural hospitals and the smaller hospitals, this is really death. And the bottom line is, this is going to be devastating in America. I think if our Republican colleagues, God forbid they pass this bill and it becomes law, could turn the clock a year ahead, they'd all say, why did we do that? Why did we do that? Questions on this subject? Yes, ma'am.
Hey, here comes Crapo.
Good afternoon, everyone. We all want to thank the president, his team, for hosting
Idaho
us down here. We had a very
Senator
positive
Crapo.
discussion about the path forward on the big, beautiful bill, on the reconciliation bill. And I think it was a reminder that we are all in this together. This is a team effort, and everybody is going to be rowing in the same direction to get this across the finish line. Failure is not an option, and we intend to deliver along with the president for the American people on the things that he committed to do and that we committed to do in terms of the agenda. And so the reconciliation bill will be positive for growth. It'll be good for the economy. It'll create better paying jobs. And we intend on energy, on national security, on spending reductions, on tax policy, on border security, all of those areas to address the issues the American people care about, to make them more safe, more secure, and more prosperous in the future. Senator Barrasso.
Well, Republicans are committed to a safe and prosperous America. And that's what this bill does. It provides for safety as well as prosperity for the American people. We shared with the president the fact that the American people trust Republicans much more on the economy than they do the Democrats. And this bill does what the American people want us to do. And the number one and most important thing is that this bill prevents a $4 trillion tax increase, which would be the largest tax increase in the history of the country. Democrats want that tax increase to come into place. Republicans are going to stop it. Additionally, I'm a doctor, took care of patients for a long, long time, took care of many, many
I wouldn't
patients
go
on
to your
Medicaid.
practice,
We need to
that's for
strengthen
sure.
Medicaid for the people that it's designed
Well,
to
you
take
couldn't make
care
enough
of.
money in,
And that means we
doctor?
need to stop paying, the taxpayers need to stop paying for Medicaid for illegal immigrants. We're going to unleash American energy. All of these things are going to lower costs, increase wages, and put more money into people's pockets.
Okay, here comes Mike.
As has been said, we had a very, very robust and helpful discussion with the president today. Everyone was able to get their concerns voiced and their hopes identified. We have very strong support, and we have very strong unity in moving forward to make sure that we don't give America the biggest tax increase in the history of the country.
Billionaires.
A $4.3 trillion tax increase. There's a lot of talk about this as a tax cut for the wealthy. This is a $2.6 trillion tax increase on people making less than $400,000, and the vast majority of that is for the middle and lower middle income categories.
You said the same thing in
And small
2018
businesses and
when I saw
large
you over at
businesses
Thatcher.
alike are looking to invest capital in America and increase the growth rate of our economy. You're seeing that kind of investment already happen in anticipation of this bill. So all the talk about how this bill is going to generate a reduction or an increase in our deficit is absolutely wrong. The fact is we're going to see the same dynamic develop after this bill is passed that we saw in 27 when we passed the bill. And that is the economy is going to explode in capital formation, jobs will increase, wages will increase, benefits will increase, and unemployment will go down, as will inflation. And we're going to see the kind of growth and strength that this country wants to be delivered from this legislation.
Senator Thune, can I ask you, did SALT come up, Senator Thune? I mean, this is a big issue. You gave that interview. And is the president with you on reopening up the SALT conversation?
SALT always comes up. It's an issue that there's a lot of passion for and about among Republican senators. Obviously, the House has different equities when it comes to that issue, but we'll work it out. I mean, we obviously realize that anything we do also has to pass the House of Representatives. It's got to be something that the president's willing to sign into law. And I think the president understands the dynamic in both the House and the Senate and why it was necessary to do something on SALT in the House. And we also understand that we're going to have to probably do something there, but we also start from a position that there really isn't a single Republican senator who cares much about the SALT issue. It's just not an issue that plays. Most of our states, we're states that are low-tax states, and we don't think that low-tax states ought to be subsidizing high-tax states. So as a matter of policy, in my view, I think we would all agree in 2017 that was one of the best reforms we had in the bill. But as we understand that it's about 51 and 218. So we will work with our House counterparts and with the White House to try and get that issue in a place where we can deliver the votes and get the bill across the finish line.
Do you support the AI provision of the bill?
Senator, why do you think Elon Musk is trying to kill this bill? Why do you think Elon Musk is trying to kill this bill?
Well, I can't speak to his reasons other than what he stated, and I think that what he stated was that he thought it was something that would add to the deficit, and we believe the opposite. We believe that if you take the CBO assumptions, which were dramatically off when it came to the 2017 tax bill, but if you take pretty much everybody else's economic modeling and you realize the growth as a result of passing this bill, that growth generates additional government revenue. And over time, you end up not increasing the deficit but reducing the deficit.
$7.8 trillion.
I think our members understand kind of the whole, CBO scoring model game here in Washington. So I think at the end of the day, most of our members want to pass a bill that they believe is going to be stimulative, that's going to create growth in the economy, create better paying jobs, and therefore generate more government revenue.
Same old baloney of 2018 Mike Crapo. I don't think they believe him.
Senator, just to follow up on that, Elon Musk said today that the bill should be killed and that you should start all over. Are you saying that that's not going to happen?
No, I mean we're a long ways down this track, and we realize that this is a bill
2025
that the House spent a lot of time.
Written by the Heritage Foundation.
I think we've said we've had like 18 different meetings now with the Senate Finance Committee, And we're committed to
to write
making a
that
law
turkey.
that will make the lives of the
Trump
American
said,
people
Trump
better.
said, I don't know
And
what
so
that is.
we are moving forward, and I'm hopeful that at the end we'll have 51 votes in the Senate, and whenever the bill goes back to the House, they'll have the requisite number to put it on
Mike
the
says
president's
that
desk.
they
So
need,
this is
there's
the
two
wheels are in motion
Republicans
on this. As I said before,
that are
failure's
going
not an
against
option.
this big,
We will
ugly
get this
bill.
done one way or the other,
It's
and
not good, and you
it's
need
not
one
going to be
more.
easy.
It's
It's
not
not
going
going
to
to
be
be
him.
Senator, did you talk about the rescissions package out with the president?
Well, I think there's interest, as you know, in a rescissions package, and so I think it was touched upon that also would be a piece of the overall effort to try and to rein in the size, the cost of government, and to get our country on a more sustainable
Yeah,
fiscal
put it-
path. So rescissions is an
easier to
issue
take
there.
over that
Obviously,
way,
the
isn't it?
White House has
Make
sent
money.
a package forward. I assume there may be others that come. Most of the rescissions bills deal
Bankrupt
with
the
discretionary
middle class.
spending, which is also subject to the annual appropriations process in the Congress.
Justice to a third
But
world
what we're
country
talking
that
about
I
here, obviously, is
lived in when I
reconciliation,
was a kid.
which deals with mandatory spending and with tax policy and healthcare policy and a whole range of other things. So we feel good about where we are. We think the House gave us a good product to work with, but we think we can refine it, improve it, strengthen it, and be prepared
That's
to
what Mike
put
said,
something together.
2018, Thatcher, Idaho.
What about the AI provision of the bill?
Oh, they're running away.
On Thursday, Commerce